bay smells of machine oil and cold iron. I am not looking at my brothers. I am looking out. A hive city. From this altitude, it looks almost beautiful. A vast, sprawling sea of twinkling lights. Millions of lives. Billions of souls. All burning like tiny, desperate candles in the dark. They pray to the Emperor for salvation down there. They burn incense. They sing hymns. They think the Master of Mankind sends angels in golden armor to answer their cries. They are wrong. He does not send gold to the outer dark. He sends us, drenched in the deep, arterial red of the tactical lighting. There are no golden eagles on this armor, no bright colors, just a towering, silent giant waiting for the pressure hull to drop. We do not come with mercy. We come for the tithe. We will take their sons. We will bleed their streets. We will strip this world of its strength, not because we hate them, but because the Emperor's war demands flesh to feed the meat grinder. To survive, the Imperium must have monsters, and we are his. But to understand why we wait in this red light, why we fight with such terrifying, silent cruelty, you have to look away from the bleeding cities. You have to look up, past the dying stars, past the Emperor's light, and into the black border of the galactic fringe, the outer dark. Not a place on any official Imperial map. Not a name you'll find in the Administratum's endless bureaucratic catalogues. But we know every system within it, every asteroid field, every dead world where the light of the Astronomicon fades to nothing and the warp itself becomes thin and hungry. For 10,000 years we have held that frontier alone. Not because the Imperium ordered us to, not because we volunteered, but because, well, because something had to. And the High Lords do not keep records of how they solve their most shameful problems. They simply look away and let us hunt. We have no homeworld, no fortress monastery with training grounds and recruitment academies, no Imperial supply line, no Forge World allegiance, no institutional memory that anyone sane would admit to. We are a fleet, 7 ancient vessels, held together by 10 millennia of repairs and prayers to gods whose names our brotherhood keeps to itself. And those ships, they move through the outer dark, the way a hunting shark moves through water. Patient, methodical, absolutely certain that whatever they are looking for will eventually pass through their territory. But a fleet needs to feed. A fleet needs ammunition, armor, spare parts. A fleet needs warriors to replace those the Void and the enemy claim every year. And when the Imperium's supply lines cannot reach you, when you are operating so far from civilization that even whispered rumors take centuries to return, you must adapt, or you must hunt. We do both. And this is where the nightmare truly begins. We call it the Tithe, a single word that covers 2 utterly different operations, 2 harvests, 2 ways of stripping a world down to its bones and carrying away everything of value. The red tithe comes first. When the fleet needs recruits, we enter a system, usually a penal world, a prison asteroid, a remote colony so isolated that no one cares what happens to the population. We do not announce ourselves. We do not demand surrender or offer terms. We simply land, and we take. We take the young, the strong, the ones with the kind of aggression in their eyes that suggests they might survive what comes next. Thousands of them sometimes, all loaded into the holds of our flagship like cattle, all destined for a place deeper in the ship where the water gets colder and the light grows dim. The pit. It is our oldest tradition on the Charybdis. No record exists of when it was built or who first decided this was the correct way to select a brother. But our oldest centurions who have served since before the Imperium's current institutional form even existed, they cannot remember a time when the pit was not there. The candidates are thrown into absolute darkness, complete, suffocating, total. not alone. There is something else in there with them, something we have carefully selected and bred for exactly this purpose. Something that moves through the black the way we move through inhabited space, without warning, without mercy, with perfect efficiency. The candidates have no weapons, no light, no communication with each other except the sound of breathing and the wet sounds of survival. They fight, they die, by the thousands. And we watch from above with void black eyes that see perfectly in darkness humans cannot even imagine. The ones who survive, the ones who make it through 72 hours of that darkness, those are considered worthy of gene seed implantation, not because they are the strongest. Strength does not keep you alive in the pit. Aggression does not keep you alive. Desperation does. Ruthlessness, the willingness to kill anything, including whoever was your friend an hour ago, to keep breathing one more minute. This is the raw material we need, not soldiers, predators. But the red tithe is only half the equation, because warriors need armor, weapons, ammunition, ship repairs. The things that a fleet burning through the void simply cannot replace through pillage alone. So we trade, the grey tithe. Deep in the fringes of known space, in systems so old and corrupted that the Imperium has given up trying to govern them, we have found something that the Adeptus Mechanicus wants very badly. Ancient technology. Dark age of technology artifacts. Xenos tech. Things dredged up from dead worlds and dead vaults that have no official place in the Emperor's Imperium, but which the Mechanicus will pay extraordinary prices for in weapons, armor, and perfectly maintained Mark V power suits. We do not look like anything you would recognize. Our armor is grey, not the polished grey of an ultramarines company, not the sleek grey of a trained force, the grey of ancient metal that has been rebuilt 1,000 times, patched, maintained, worn smooth by 1,000 years of hands replacing the last 1,000 years of hands. Our weapons are worse, brutal. We favor chain axes over swords, not because of any philosophy, but because a chain axe splits armor more efficiently than a blade. We use boarding harpoons to drag enemy ships into point-blank range, lightning claws that do not flash with any tactical elegance, but simply rip through whatever they touch. Everything about us is practical, cold, optimized for a kind of warfare that most chapters consider slightly too honest about its fundamental nature. And there is something else, something unique to our blood that sets us apart from every other warrior in the Imperium. On our skin, covering every visible surface not hidden by armor, are marks, tattoos, ancient ones, written in a script that predates the Emperor's rise, layered over each other like geological strata, marks that trace lineage, marks that show which generation you are, marks that, according to our own internal mythology, bind us to the Void Father, who sent us into the dark. These are the exile marks, and their very existence points to something that the Imperium's highest scholars have spent centuries trying very carefully not to examine too closely. Because we should not exist, not as we are, our gene seed is chimeric, contaminated. The tech priests of Mars look at our flesh and tremble. They whisper that our blood maps to no clean first founding legion. They see shadows of things that should have stayed buried. There are echoes of Corvus Corax in the structure, the Raven Guard, the patience, the understanding of shadow and silence that marks every assault we make. But there is something else in there too, something that tastes like curs, like the Night Lords, like the cold mathematical appreciation for terror as a weapon, the understanding that breaking an enemy's mind before you break their body is more efficient. How does our blood contain two contradictory lines? How did a brotherhood born in shadow and silence come to embrace the philosophy of psychological warfare? The answer lies in a man whose name has been deliberately excised from every official Imperial record. A man called Arcus Fowl. He was Raven Guard, a captain of some significance from what fragments remain, and he survived Istvan Far, the drop site massacre. The moment when 3 loyalist legions were annihilated by betrayal and overwhelming force. Corax lived. So did Fowl. And in the aftermath of that catastrophe, in the chaos of the Horus Heresy's early campaigns, something changed. The official record goes quiet. There is a gap, and when the records resume, Arcus Fowl is gone, erased. The Damnatio Memoriae applied so carefully that even the shape of his removal is a kind of history. What happened is this. Fowl and his warband encountered something, possibly Night Lord's remnants, possibly something worse. And in that encounter, they were changed, transformed. The Raven Guard's doctrine of patience and stealth merged with something altogether darker. Terror, predation, the absolute commitment to being more dangerous than the predators that hunted them. They could not return to the Imperium as they were, could not rejoin a legion built on honor and restraint. So they left, took ancient ships and the remnants of gene seed stocks, and departed into the void that had just begun to recede beyond the Astronomican's reach. And in that void, they became something new, the Carcharodons, the things the Imperium calls the space sharks, a brotherhood that would survive by becoming what the darkness itself feared. We have been there for 10,000 years, and something changes in us when blood is spilled in sufficient quantities. It is called the red blindness. It is not madness. That is important to understand. We are not berserkers, not in the way a space wolf might be. We do not lose control. We simply shift. The cold, patient predator mode that defines our normal operations shuts down, and something older activates, something that sits below conscious thought. When the red blindness takes us, we do not scream. We do not roar battle cries. We become quieter, even more silent than usual. But the violence becomes total, absolute. The kind of slaughter that makes other forces look warm and welcoming by comparison. A single one of us in the red blindness can kill 40 men in the time most Marines kill 10. Not through supernatural strength, through complete absence of hesitation, through the elimination of every filter between thought and action. We do not check ourselves, do not consider mercy, do not stop. And when the slaughter is finished, when the enemy is simply gone, the blindness recedes. We calm. We become cold and patient again, as if something ancient was merely hungry, fed, and returned to sleep. This is what we bring to war. This is why, when the Badab War erupted in the 41st millennium, when the outer rim regions near the Maelstrom suddenly erupted into open rebellion against Imperial authority, we emerged from the outer dark as a complete shock to every power player in the region. We did not come as peacekeepers or liberators. We came for the Tithe. The Mantis Warriors held the Badab sector, decent chapter, disciplined, professional. They had turned against the Imperium as part of a complex web of secessionist movements, and they had fortified their positions expecting to face other chapters, armies, something they could negotiate with. They did not expect us. When we fell upon them, we did not bring grand displays or orbital fire. We simply appeared in the fortifications, in the corridors, moving with the terrible patience of something that has hunted across 10,000 years and knows exactly how to kill. The Mantis Warriors were exterminated, completely. No prisoners, no negotiation, no mercy. Their chapter was broken in 3 days of fighting that the few survivors described only in the vaguest, most disturbed terms. And then we simply left, returned to our ships, disappeared back into the outer dark, left no explanation, accepted no thanks, took what supplies we needed for the Tithe, and departed. That was the moment the core worlds learned what the Outer Rim has always screamed in the dark. We are not a weapon you can control. We could be pointed at a target, but we answered to no one but ourselves and the Emperor we called the Void Father. But what truly sets us apart from every other warrior in the Imperium is the man who commands us, Tyberos, the Red Wake. He is enormous, even by the standards of other chapter masters, who are usually chosen for exceptional size and strength. Tyberos is a giant, standing nearly 3 meters tall in basic power armor. Even taller in the Terminator plate he almost never removes. Ancient armor, probably 10,000 years old, maintained through countless cycles of repair and recommissioning. The suit is covered in scars, gouges, the marks of weapons that have struck and failed to penetrate. His face is grey, ashen, the void black eyes of our bloodline, but deeper somehow, as if something behind those eyes has seen too much dark for too long and has stopped expecting light to ever return. He carries twin lightning claws, relic weapons of impossible age. They are named Hunger and Slake. The names matter. They are not names of pride or accomplishment. They are names that describe a cycle, a need. Hunger that is temporarily satisfied, then returns. An eternal predatory rhythm. The chapter master does not speak much. We communicate in near total silence during combat, using hand signals that trace back to traditions so old that no one alive can remember their origin. When he does speak, other captains listen, because every word from the Red Wake carries the weight of 10,000 years of survival in a place that has killed every other brotherhood that ever ventured there. He has personally led 17 major operations, personally killed somewhere in the vicinity of 40,000 enemies, personally earned the exile marks that cover his skin in such density and complexity that he looks less like a marine and more like a living record of a civilization's entire violent history. He is the ultimate apex predator in an Imperium full of apex predators, and he is, by every measure, quietly terrifying. But even he, even Tyberos, even the Red Wake has something that haunts him. It is called the Zartak Incident, and it represents the moment when we proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that we are not merely the Imperium's weapon. We are the Imperium's ace in the hole, the thing in the dark that even the darkest forces in the galaxy fear. Zartak is a penal world, one of the furthest reaches of Imperial space, a dump for the worst criminals the Imperium could not simply execute, because some of them were too valuable, too skilled, too dangerous to waste. 20 years ago, a Night Lord's warband arrived there. Not an official Night Lord's chapter, an exile band. Remnants of something darker that had survived the Horus Heresy and the Long War by operating in the farthest reaches of space. They did not come to conquer. They came to set up a base, to use the penal world as a staging ground for operations deeper in the outer dark. The Imperium's forces on Zartak were overwhelmed in hours. The leadership of the penal world executed, the population subjugated, and then the Night Lords made a single, catastrophic mistake. They did not notice that we were also hunting in that region, that one of our scouting squadrons had been conducting a silent assessment of the penal world's resources and population for the Red Tithe. When we discovered the Night Lord's presence, something happened that the survivors of the penal world still cannot describe without shaking. We did not attack the Night Lords directly, not at first. We simply moved in, silently, in the middle of the night. We occupied the ventilation systems, the maintenance tunnels, the sub-levels of the penal colony, and then we began to hunt. The Night Lords are masters of terror. They use fear as a primary weapon. They enjoy the sound of screaming. They thrive on the psychological disintegration of their enemies. But on Zartak, they discovered that there is a level of terror even they were not prepared for. The terror of being hunted by something that does not make a sound, something that does not scream, something that does not enjoy what it is doing, something that simply eliminates. One by one, the Night Lords began to disappear. No bodies, no blood, just empty bunks, empty guard posts, empty corridors. The Night Lords, who had spent 10,000 years making the galaxy scream, found themselves in a silence so absolute, it began to break them. They tried to fortify. They tried to set traps. They tried to use the penal population as human shields. It didn't matter. We moved through their shields. We ignored their traps. We walked over their human barriers as if they were empty air. When the final confrontation came, in the central command hub of the penal colony, Tyberos himself led the assault. The Night Lord's leader, a veteran of the Long War named Gorth, faced the Red Wake. Gorth was a monster, a killer who had personally slaughtered thousands. He expected a duel, a conversation, a moment of recognition between two creatures of the dark. Tyberos gave him nothing. He didn't speak. He didn't pause. He simply walked through Gorth's lightning claws and tore the Night Lord apart with hunger and slake. It was over in 3 seconds. The rest of the warband was exterminated in the next hour. No one escaped. No one was taken prisoner. And then, we turned our eyes to the cattle left behind. The criminals of Zartak had been liberated from the Night Lords. They expected gratitude, or at least they expected to be returned to their cells. Instead, they were subjected to the Red Tithe. We took the strongest, the youngest, the ones who had survived the Night Lord's occupation with their aggression intact. The rest, we left, not because we were merciful, because they were no longer useful. Let the regular military arrive months late to find a silent world. Let them wonder where the Night Lords went. Let them count the empty cages. The report from the inquisitorial representative who inspected the world is still classified, but the rumors say that he found only one thing written on the walls of the command hub. Not in Gothic, not in any language he recognized. A single mark, a shark's tooth. This is our reality. We are not heroes. We are not defenders of humanity in the way the stories describe. We are the price the Imperium pays for its survival, the price the Emperor demands for holding the line in the outer dark. We are the monsters that hunt the monsters. We live in the silence. We fight in the red light. We die in the void. And we do it all for a God Emperor who has forgotten we exist, who has erased our names from his records, who has cast us out into the darkness and told us never to return. But we do return, every few centuries, when the tithe is due, when the fleet needs to feed, when the hunger returns. We return to your worlds. We descend through your reign. We stand in your streets, and we take. So when you look up at the night sky, when you see the stars flickering in the distance, do not pray for the angels in golden armor. Pray that you never see the grey ships. Pray that the red light never finds you. Pray that the Void Father is satisfied with what he has already taken. Because if we come for you, there is no negotiation. There is no mercy. There is only the tithe. And the tithe is always paid. The bay smells of machine oil and cold iron. The ramp is dropping. The city is waiting, and we are hungry.